All right, welcome to another edition of Buc What You Heard. My name is Gene. You could reach me at Super Heavyweight. You follow me, I'll follow you back. This is another victory week for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They went in and did what a lot of people didn't think they could do. They won at Arrowhead, considering how good the Kansas City Chiefs have been at home. I think that was quite a significant win for the Bucs. I'm joined tonight by my co-host Terra, and longtime Bucks fan. And Terra, tell everybody how they can get a hold of you and how you doing tonight.
Well, I'm doing pretty good. It's been a nice solid night. And just to be upfront at the beginning, I was one of those people who didn't think we could get it done at Arrowhead, so I'm one of them. But yeah, you can reach me at TERRALSP on Twitter. My handle is that, but my username is kind of contradictory. Right now, it's Derek Carr is Christ because the Texans going to get the job done on Monday night and beat the Raiders. And so I have this long-standing bet because we lost to the Raiders a few weeks ago, and so I have to keep it that until the Raiders lose. So go Bills. So that's how you can reach me. And I don't really have a lot more to say. Yeah, lifelong Bucs fan. Been here since day one. So.
All right. So I got to get your thoughts on this game. I love the game. I thought Tampa did a great job. I feel like they went out and executed like they were supposed to. And, a lot of our keys to the victories last week were things that we talked about on the last podcast, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
The running game was huge. I know Doug Martin didn't get 100 yards, but the yards he got were significant. Jameis Winston played like a true pro, and I was real happy with his play, and I thought our defense did well as well.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, it helped us that Marcus Peters was out because that allowed for Mike Evans to have a better game than I thought he would have if obviously Marcus Peters was there. And then our defense was outstanding. I was so impressed with the defense this week. It was gorgeous defense. I mean, I'm really upset that we lost Brett Grimes in the process. I don't know what his deal is, if he's going to be back for this next week against Seattle. I hope he is. But our defense has looked amazing that game. I mean, the one fault we may have had was not being able to get into the end zone every drive. But, I mean, you kind of expect that being in Kansas City, and Kansas City doesn't have a terrible defense themselves. So, I mean, I was completely impressed with every aspect of this game from the Bucs. It's one of the more complete games I think we've played all season.
And you talk about Roberto Aguayo. When you talk about not being able to get in the end zone, the Buccaneers were able to score, and that's what's important: being able to come away with some points. And I think he's finding his groove. I mean, you see the confidence that he's kicking with the past couple of weeks, and it's really exciting to see that. He's a rookie. And it takes a little bit of time. I know we live in a microwave society where we want everything right now. It's got to be done right now. But I think he's progressing along, and I hold out hope that he's going to be a great pick for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So, hats off to him. I would like to thank Arrowhead, because that war chant, the Florida State war chant was amazing. I love hearing it. I'm not an alumni or anything like that, but that's one of the fun parts about Florida State is hearing the war chant. And as Jameis Winston said, when he heard it on third down, it got him hyped up, and we may have
we got lucky with
Raymond James, I'm thinking.
That would be a good idea. I mean, it might upset the Florida fans. I know there aren't Raymond James, but I'm behind that idea. And going back to Roberto, I mean, he's been perfect the past 2 weeks, and that's been a huge part of how the success we've had. And just there was some other point I wanted to make on that, but you're right. He looks like he's coming into his own, and I hope he continues that. Oh, well, this last week, 11 PATs were missed, and not one of them came from Roberto Aguayo. And I was like, that's a stat I'm proud of right there. So
yeah, absolutely. So that's something also to look forward to. I just think, like I said, it's good to see Doug Martin back. We are still getting players back healthy at the right time. So I'm really excited with the prospect of what Tampa can possibly do.
I'm probably too excited that we're at 500 right now. Like, if I was a fan of another team, that probably wouldn't be such a big deal. But, I am so hyped that we're at 500.
Yeah, absolutely. And think about this. One more game, and we're at this point in the season, and we will have tied what our record was for all of last year. So,
Yep.
there are winnable games. I don't think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are slouches. I think there are going to be games that are winnable games, and that's what I want to see. I want to see
Yeah.
them go out and win the games that they're supposed to win, and the games that they're not supposed to win as well. So
Yeah,
that's
just go out and compete. I mean, we've had a lot of close games in the recent years, but if I feel like that if the defense and offense continue to show up like did against Kansas City and may still lose because of it, I'm okay with that because it was a solid showing. It was a good showing by the offense and defense. So if we are competing in those games that we should probably lose by a lot, and the offense and defense are continuing to play as they did last week, I'm okay with that. We can
yeah.
grow from there. We can improve. So just
So
as long as we don't show regression.
exactly, that's the key point right there. So as we're looking at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and facing the Kansas City Chiefs, the Chiefs had this amazing home record that everybody was pretty much saying that it's going to be really hard to go in there and come out with a win. But I like what Dirk Cutter did. I like the play calling. First year head coach. And if you look at the last 5 minutes of the game, I thought the clock management was real good as well.
Yeah, no, I mean, Dirk Cutter, I think the play calling's only improved from him all season. There was a couple games, maybe the last Falcons game we had, I was like, oh, I don't know about this play calling we got going on. But most of the games you've seen improvement in this play calling, and so I'm really excited about that. And yeah, there's no stupid time management issues like you had with Lovey, like you had with Raheem, like you had with Greg. So I'm totally on the Dirk train right now. I'm completely pro Dirk, so I'm excited.
And Eric Moreno, one of the listeners of the show here, he had mentioned that Jude Ajabarima he's been suspended for 4 games for PEDs. He's a guy that I really like him. He came down to Phoenix and he actually worked out at Shutdown U over in Scottsdale to really improve his playing abilities. And he's a guy that really improved from last year to this year to find a place on the roster. And it's really sad that happens, and hopefully he's ready to come back the last 2 games of the season and contribute again. But I think Tampa will be fine. I think they'll be able to bounce back from that and win this game. So I really want to look at this game, Kansas City game, before we move on to Seattle, because there were so many things that I saw that I like to talk about, especially Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston, the way he threw the ball, his ball placement, his management, his leadership on the field, you could tell that he really wanted this game. And he's somebody that you could tell he's a franchise quarterback. Right now, I know we're seeing these games, and I really feel like this guy, he gets it. He wants to win. I mean, you look at what his pedigree has been since high school, and he's just gone out and won. So I think that's the kind of mentality that really is going to help change the culture for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And that's, he's our leader. So what are your thoughts on Jameis Winston so far throughout this year?
Well, yeah, no, I completely agree with you with that last sentence. He's our leader. I mean, have you seen that video of him in the locker room hyping up the players, hyping up his teammates? And so I think Jameis is a good leader. I really appreciate what he does on the field, and he is starting to get that awareness that I think I was missing from him early on in this season and going back into last season. He's not eyeing down the wide receivers as much as I saw the first few games, so that's very good. And so I'm excited for Jameis. I've been excited the last 2 quarterbacks we had too, and Josh Freeman and Mike Glennon. But Jameis looks like it's something different because he's finally getting that accuracy with the deep balls too. That was a huge issue a few weeks ago. I think against the Raiders, he overthrew a lot of the open, deep wide receivers. And it's getting better. It's not as good as it should be at this point, but it's definitely getting better. So I'm excited because, that just shows growth, and it shows what a leader can do. He knows he's not perfect yet, obviously, as he should. This is only his 2nd year. But he is becoming a leader, and I don't think he's becoming a leader. I think he's always been a leader. But I think he's learning as he's being a leader, and that's really hard for a leader to do sometimes. So I'm super excited for Jameis.
Yeah, and you kind of saw last season where he was gradually working his way into that position where you had veterans that were already here, and you don't want to step on any toes, but he's gradually worked himself into that position, and I feel like he's really proven himself. He's got that C on his chest, and he's definitely earned that. And
Hmm.
people are willing to follow him. People are willing to compete with him, and I mean, it's the whole organization. It's just not just one or two players. It's everybody coming together as a team, and that's what you need.
Yeah, no, especially when you had another C go down in Vincent Jackson on the field and you're able to still continue this leadership and continue to have this. I think you do see the chemistry on the field. And so you continue to have this chemistry. That's great because you lost one of your captains early on, but you're still able to continue this. And that's perfect.
Absolutely, players like Cameron Brate, Cecil
Hmm.
Shorts, Adam Humphreys, people that were making plays, extending plays. That's what you need to win these games, and
Hmm.
that's what's required. And I think if the Bucs continue trending like they are, they'll only get better because they still have to learn how to win. I mean, when you look at the Buccaneers, their past decade, it's just been really rough to watch. I mean, going with the exception of the 2010 season, just watching the Bucs and watching games that they should win that they let get away from them. It's a process learning how to win games, and I'm really happy to see what Tampa's doing right now. And you look at the defense. I know the defense gave up all those yards over that. Was it 1,000 yards over a span of 2 games, 3 games, something
Yeah.
like that?
Hmm.
And what they've done, they've kind of righted that, and they're doing a lot better than what they were. So I think the team as a whole is really coming around, and they're really buying into the head coach. So that's something I'm really excited about too.
Yeah, me too. I mean, we might not get to the playoffs this year, although the NFC looks weak, so I'm not going to say we won't. But we might not get to the playoffs this year, but I definitely see it next year if we continue to show this growth. We've
Right.
seen this in the past though, where the Bucks have like a solid 6 games, or like, oh my God, this is where we're going to be. We're going to be a great team in a year. We're going to put all the pieces together. You mentioned 2010, and then it just kind of falls apart. So if we continue to see this growth, we are definitely a playoff team next year. So
Yeah, I look at the injuries that the Bucks have had, and fortunately for us, they're getting healthy at the right time, and I think I mentioned that a few minutes ago. Getting Ayers back was huge. Getting Doug Martin back was huge. You can tell a difference with Doug Martin on the field, and not to knock any of our other running backs. They've done great. They've done a great job, when they've been on the field. But just having Doug Martin back, it makes a big difference. The guy is a very special runner, and I really appreciate him. Just watching him run.
yeah, and another big injury position we've had is the center, and that's huge. I mean, had to go to the third string center a couple of times, and so I think Holly's been in and out of games, but I think he'll pick it up this next game, or he should be more healthy this next game. I think he played the last game. I'm pretty sure,
Yeah,
but he's had issues, and so if you have issues at the center and you have this revolving door at the center, that can cause a whole lot of issues on that whole line. But you didn't
yeah,
see that, so that's
right.
okay. But it's still a huge thing to have Holly back and completely healthy.
Yeah, and just looking at our offensive line and all the injuries that we've had and what they've been able to do, I'm real happy with them.
Oh yeah, me too. I mean, Demar Dotson seemed like he was going to be a train wreck after last year, and he's cleaned it up. So I'm
Yeah,
super happy with this offensive line.
yeah. So and you think about it right now. What are we? Are we 11 games? We're 11, 12.
We have 10 games. We're in week 11. This is about to be week 12.
Oh yeah. Can you believe that it's almost season's almost
Oh my
over?
goodness, I know it goes by so fast every year.
Yeah. So
Ugh.
I'm you got to enjoy the game, and I like
Hmm.
where the Bucks have gone. I know that they had some bumps early on, and I know with injuries it really didn't help the situation any. I'm not making excuses, but it looks like they're trying to right this and put themselves in a position to win some games. I mean, Atlanta is not that far out of reach to catch up with Atlanta and possibly compete for a spot in the playoffs. I mean, you've got 2 games. You got 2 games against the Saints, and then you've got the other
Hmm.
game against the Carolina Panthers at the end of the year. And considering, I don't know, Atlanta's got a real their schedule is not that difficult, to be honest. If you looked at it, I don't know. If you looked at
Hmm.
their schedule, it's
Yeah.
pretty favorable for them. But
I know, like, it seemed like it was going to be a difficult schedule, but the Cardinals haven't been playing well, and just yeah. So it really isn't. Hmm.
yeah, and you listen in living here in Phoenix. You listen to everybody talking about the Cardinals. Everybody's jumping out the window here. So everybody's pretty much written the Cardinals off in this game against Atlanta. But you still have to go out and play the game. So there's that possibility.
Yeah, no, I'm hoping for the Cardinals to show up. I mean, I still think they're a good team. The offensive line has been an issue, obviously. That's a huge thing for the Cardinals. But I don't think the Atlanta front four is all that vicious. I don't think it's not going to be the toughest defensive line they've had to face. So maybe they'll be able to pull something off in Atlanta. And Atlanta, the past few years, have kind of fallen off the map late in the season. So
Yeah,
if that's
that's
still
true.
a thing, hopefully. I mean, this is all like about a lot of conjecture and a lot of
Right.
like if and then and all those
Yeah.
things. But,
Hey,
possibilities.
but this is a fan show. We could talk about this kind of stuff. We're fans.
Yeah.
We could say this. We're not like professionals. We're sitting up in the press box or anything. We
Yeah,
could say
not
this
yet.
stuff.
I still got some time. All right, don't
Yeah.
put me there yet. I don't want to be professional
So
yet.
yeah, well, just enjoy it while you can.
Hmm.
And folks, we were talking about the Atlanta Falcons because they're number one in the NFC South, and that's the team that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers should be really looking at, making a run for right now. But it's one game at a time, and
Hmm.
our next opponent is going to be very tough. And I'm just glad we're not playing in Seattle. At least it's
Oh
in
yeah.
Tampa.
Hmm.
That's a lot better than playing with the 12th man or the 13th man or whatever you want to call them in that dome the Marshall
Hmm.
Dome that they say they're the loudest stadium. But uh, I still think that's Arrowhead, and I think they cheat. So I think they're good.
I mean, I
But
remember the. Oh, you continue. My bad.
oh no, you're good. You're good. We cut in on each other. That's what we do.
Yeah. I was just saying, I remember the last time we went to Seattle and the big lead we gave up. So I'm happy we're not going to revisit that one, hopefully.
Yeah.
I mean, like, as long as we don't give up a big lead, we tend to do it every year. Redskins last year, Seattle the year before. So,
Yeah.
but I hope it doesn't happen.
Yeah, absolutely. So, any other thoughts on the Chiefs game before we jump over to the Seahawks?
No, it was just a good, well-rounded effort by the whole team. I mean, there was not a part of that game I was like, "Oh, the defense," or yeah, the defense looks flat. The offense isn't producing. There wasn't a single part of that game where I was like, "Are we really doing this right now?" I mean, there's a couple times when we didn't get to the end zone. I was like, "We should have scored there. We should have scored 6 points instead of three," but we got three, and I was happy with every aspect of it. So.
Yeah, most definitely. And kind of going back to Roberto Aguayo, I know I've had debates with people with Bucs fans because I would give the game ball to Roberto Aguayo
Me
personally,
too. Yeah,
based
me too.
on
Absolutely.
where he started with the season, going back to the preseason, and where he is now, and the fact that he's helped to basically won that game. I think the Bucs ended up with a touchdown and all those other field goals. Think about this. I mean, without any of those kicks, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers don't win. One
Hmm.
miss, one miss, and they don't win.
Yeah.
So, he gets my game ball. That's my guy right there. I'm happy for him. With all the slander he's gotten on social media, and it wasn't his fault he was drafted where he was drafted, but I think he's writing it. I think he's got it in his head. Hey, this is what we need to do, and I'm happy for him. I hope that he continues to succeed. And I made a bet with somebody in the beginning of the season that Roberto Aguayo would help win 3 games. He's done two: Carolina and Kansas City. Now, all I need him to do is get me one more, and I'm good money.
There you go. I hope so, dude. Losing bets is not fun.
Yeah, it's not. Believe me.
No.
Yeah, I've got and I fell down your rabbit hole. I've got a bet with a Charger fan, and if I lose, I have to change my profile picture to Philip Rivers for a week. So there's that.
Yeah, my roommates are Chargers fans, so that'll be an interesting week. That'll be a really interesting one.
So we'll see what happens.
Hmm.
So let's move on to the Seattle Seahawks. It's a team. They rank right up there with the Dallas Cowboys with me of teams that I cannot stand. I think it's because of the fans here in Phoenix that weren't
Mm.
Seahawks fans until they started winning, and then all of a
Hmm.
sudden they pop up and here they are, and they talk about how they were lifelong fans, but they don't even know who Sean Alexander is. That kind of thing. That
Yeah.
annoys me to no end.
I mean, he was
But
on the cover for Madden, for God's sakes.
yeah.
So that alone.
But let's talk about this team. It looks like Michael Bennett has been ruled out for this game, so the Bucs won't have to face Michael Bennett. Uh,
Second huge break in a row for the Bucs. That's nice.
yeah, and the
Hmm.
running game, all the injuries that they've had in the running game has just been wild, and
Hmm.
I think that works to our advantage too. Uh, this is going to be a game right here. If the Bucs want to define their season, I would say this game right here would be the game that could be the turning point, gaining confidence, uh, showing that you can go in and win the big game. That kind of thing is very important. I know it's one game at a time, and this is a game that's going to keep the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the playoff hunt. As we go through the season. And I don't know if you remember this time last year, right before Quan Alexander was suspended, the Bucs were right there in the mention for the playoffs. But
Yeah.
because of all the things that happened, they kind of fell off towards the end of the season. So um, let's hope that they can learn from last season and get in there and kind of limit the mistakes and uh, pull out a game. Well, let's win a game here. So, we were talking offline, and I know you were talking about Russell Wilson. Now,
Hmm.
I don't know how healthy he is. I know he's been banged up all season,
Yeah.
and I just I'm not sure how healthy he really is, and that's kind of I've been kind of going back and forth, looking like I was watching part of the game from last week, and I'm just I'm not sure where he is, and in looking at Seattle, how do you feel like Seattle matches up with Tampa? I mean,
I
if you're looking at a team that plays mistake-free football, and I know again conjecture here, how do they match up with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers?
Well, okay, so this is how I view Seattle. Much different than Kansas City. We're going back to they are a better version of I think Chicago's offense. And so they have a good wide receiving core. They have a great tight end in Jimmy Graham. And so it's going to be an aerial attack, especially with the injuries they've had with the running back position, which could be an issue for the Bucs, especially if Brent Grimes is out. Now, Chris Conti has had a decent last 2 weeks, so that restores some faith in me for him. However, I don't know how much that carries. You got a rookie in Hargraves who's been playing pretty well. I'm not going to say anything against Hargraves. He's been doing fine for a rookie, but you don't know if you want him to match up against a Baldwin or something like that. Right. And so, yeah, I don't know. The aerial attack scares me a little. Russell's ability to run scares me a little. However, I think with the defense, I mean Seattle's defense, and with Bennett being
Right,
out, Bennett's out, right? Yeah, with
right.
Bennett being out, that also allows for the Bucs offense to have a great game. It allows for this to be close to a shootout in my mind, especially if we can get it into the end zone, which we are failing to do against Kansas City, which I think we will, because I really think the hostility of Arrowhead and just the mistake-free football that Kansas City plays, I think they play it better than Seattle plays. I mean, Kansas City was known for having mistake-free football. That's how they got to that 7-2 record, not 7-3. Go Bucs! But and so I think with that being said, that was the statement game for the Bucs. If they can carry the momentum from the Kansas City game, because I consider that to be the statement game. And so if they can continue to carry it to Seattle, that will be nice. But or no, we're playing in Tampa. I'm all confused right now. But we're playing in Tampa. So if they can carry it against Seattle, that would be nice. But I think we had our statement game. So if we lose this one, I'm not completely off. Like I'm not going off the ship. I'm not, saying the season's lost by any means because we have 3 divisional games left, like you said. But I don't know how much faith I have in that defense against the aerial attack. If Winston can keep up, we're going to be fine. I think that's what it comes down to. Winston and Evans being able to keep up against Wilson and his receivers.
Right. And it's one of those things where Richard Sherman, I don't know, whoever's on. I know Richard Sherman only plays on one side of the ball. He doesn't shadow receivers, so that
Hmm.
kind of works to that kind of helps us a little bit.
Yeah.
I really feel like our receivers have really stepped up. Cecil Shorts is getting familiar with the playbook. We're seeing his yards per game starting to rise up. What did he get? 65 yards this last game. Uh, Adam Humphries making catches where he had been missing catches earlier on in the season. Just little things like that. I think they're cleaning up a lot of the small things that have really been hurting them, and
Hmm.
that's really exciting to me. Uh, Last year, if you go back to my podcast, I griped and griped and griped about penalties, backbreaking penalties, penalties
Hmm.
at the wrong time, and Tampa's done pretty good about staying out of their own way. You haven't seen a lot of boneheaded penalties, and that's
No.
really exciting to me. Again, I have to stress that Tampa cannot turn the ball over. Uh, Love this team. I think this team is great. This team works best when they jump out to an early lead.
Hmm.
It definitely helps them. It helps Winston get into a rhythm. It helps this team get the running game going, and they can execute their game plan being ahead a lot better than they could playing from behind. So that to me is key right there, is making sure that whenever they get the opportunity to score, that they're scoring. I would love to see seven, but the fact that they're able to put points on the board and it's helping to build confidence in the kicker, I love it. I think that's only going to make for a better team moving forward.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, especially with the penalties thing, because my dad and I talk after every Bucks game. That's just something we do. We either by text or by phone call, we talk after every Bucks game. And every single game last year was that penalty was killer. That penalty was what cost us the game, or turnover too. You make a good point about turnovers, and most coaches will say that turnovers will win or lose you games. You got to be in the plus, not the minus. But those penalties would just kill us all game long, and that was one of the reasons why I thought Lovey needed to go, or why we shouldn't have hired him to begin with, because the penalties just never ceased. And so they have ceased though. And that is so exciting. You're so right about that. It's just so it's a breath of fresh air not to have to bring up that costly penalty or the third straight false start we had on one drive. It was just so nice not to have to think about that constantly. And that will be key against Seattle.
Yeah, and one thing I do want to mention too, with the penalties, there are some teams in the NFL that just know how to win games. And I know that
Mm-hmm.
sounds very cliche, but there are teams that like are in the top 5 in penalties, but they continually win games because
Oakland.
yeah, and you look at their culture and they're building that winning culture and they know how to go out and win games or finish games. I wouldn't say Oakland so much, but
Well, they're definitely up there in penalties, and
oh
they've
yeah,
got an 8-2 record at this point.
yeah,
So
yeah, you're right. Yeah, so there you go. And I look at Tampa. Tampa's a team. Once they get it, once they figure it out, and they're going to have that confidence every game they go out to. They feel like they're in it or they're going to win. And that's why I say I understand the Kansas City game. I understand you talk about how defining that game was, but now this is where Tampa needs to really step up. Defend your house. You've got a good team, a quality team coming into Raymond James. Let's see if we can go out there and win this game for the fans. That kind of
that would
thing.
be nice.
Yeah, I mean, and I say this all the time. I love season ticket holders. I know so many Buccaneers season ticket holders, awesome people, and I think it's something I would want for them. The fact that they come out every day and spend all this money on parking, spend all this money on concessions, only to watch their team lose. They deserve to win. So that's one of those things that, yeah, I want the Bucs to win, but I want the Bucs to win for the fans. I would love to see Raymond James back the way it was back in the '90s. So
Mm-hmm.
that's something that I really hope for. Is that they can get to that point. And again, you have a quality team in Seattle who's in the playoff hunt themselves, and they're a playoff contender, and they're coming into Tampa. If we can win that game, that would be huge.
It would be definitely huge because I could see the NFC South coming down to a tiebreaker. And so if you get those quality wins, that helps with the whole tiebreaker scenario. Also division wins as well, of course, that first, but then it goes to quality wins. So I think definitely that would help. Um, and you talk about the 90s, and I was not old enough to go to games in the 90s, but my dad had season tickets in the late
Right.
90s. And so he said the reason when he went to a Bucs game, he wasn't going to see a win, he was going to party. And so I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, you know what? That's probably fair at that time. And so, but if you can create the culture, not to create a party, but to create a winning atmosphere, that's why you're going to the Bucs game to see a win. That's a complete shift in the culture around the team, in the culture around the fan base
Yeah.
and the city. So if you can create that culture shift, you'll then it will just demand all this attention to come to the team.
Right.
So that's what they
And
really
your
need to
dad
do.
and your dad is 100% right. I mean, I can remember Holland and Knight, the law firm, used to throw some amazing tailgate parties. Just different factions. JJ Taylor, the beer distributor, had an awesome tailgate party. I think they still do theirs. What the Buck was just starting up. I think that was a little bit after, but yeah, there were a lot of different tailgates that you could go to and just have a good time. It was fun,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a lot more fun. And I've been to both stadiums, and you will never remember the old stadium, but old
The
stadium was a lot of
sombrero, I
fun.
remember the
Yeah,
name.
yeah, exactly. Sombrero was fun. It was a lot of fun, but Raymond James, and I guess I'm biased. I've been to stadiums. I've been to other football stadiums, and they just don't compare to Raymond James Stadium. And I say that all the time, and people are like, "Oh, what are you talking about?" Like Dallas Cowboy Stadium. I cannot even. It doesn't even compare to Raymond James. They're not in the same. It looks like a toilet seat that with this lid down. To me, that's what I think of Cowboy Stadium. But when you think about Raymond James, you think of the pirate ship. You think of just when they get into the red zone, you hear the cannons firing.
Oh
It's
yeah.
just it's so exciting, and it gets you so pumped up when the Bucks are winning. I mean, there's nothing like it. Last year, when the Bucks beat the Falcons, I was there, and just the vibe there was it was incredible. Just seeing Jameis and seeing what he did. I mean, that legendary play where he turned a loss into a 20-yard gain was just like there's nothing like it. So I'm excited for this team, and I think they're trending in the right direction. So what I want to do right now is I want to kind of shift over to keys to victory, and I'm going to start with you, and I want to get your four keys to victory for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and then I'll give you mine.
Number one, contain Russell Wilson. If you can contain Russell Wilson and keep him in the pocket, that will be beneficial. He's a very dangerous pocket passer too. Don't get me wrong, but the Bucs have had issues in recent years with running quarterbacks. It's been a huge problem for them. They haven't had to face Cam Newton in a while, but I don't know if you remember when they did. It was not pretty, not pretty at all. So contain Russell Wilson. That's number one. Two is establish a passing game. Most of the people will say a running game, and I think we'll be able to do that perfectly fine too. I think a running game will come, but I think if you can make sure that you are able to hit different wide receivers like we did against Kansas City and Cecil Shorts. Cecil Shorts showed up finally. He had a game finally. He was dropping balls the past few weeks, so I was excited to see him do something. So if you can just differentiate the wide receivers you're throwing to, and Cecil Shorts, Humphreys, Evans, of course, and get Brait involved in the game. That will be a huge thing for them too. I think you need to really just mix it up in the passing game, and then get the linebackers involved. You mentioned this. I don't remember if it was on or off air, but you mentioned the linebackers being a key part in keeping Russell Wilson contained, Quan Alexander, and Levante David. We have a great linebacking core. I think it's one of the best features of this team,
I think it's
and so
underrated.
absolutely, absolutely underrated. People do not give Levante David the love he deserves, but that could be a whole podcast in itself. So if the linebackers are able to be a key part of keeping Russell Wilson contained and watching the running game, that will be what will help us win. I think that may have only been three, but I think I hit all the things I wanted to hit.
All right. For me, I'm right there with you. I think the key is containing Russell Wilson. Uh, you can get pressure on this guy. He has it from the neck up. This guy is a
Hmm.
super intelligent quarterback, and you do not want him to get into rhythm. So that's one of those things that you have to keep pressure on the quarterback. And three and outs are very important. Don't let the Seattle Seahawks extend drives. Get them
Yeah.
off the field. That to me is the number one thing right there. Number two, Jameis Winston has to play mistake-free football. Yeah,
Hmm.
I know that he's got an arm. I know that he's got receivers, but cornerbacks like Richard Sherman, you don't need to test them. You have other weapons. Check down, take what the defense gives you, and don't try to overdo it when just let the game come to you. And that's my second one. Number three is going to be don't give up the big play. Very important. Do not give up the big play. I've seen that. It wasn't the Bucs last week. I was watching the Dallas Cowboys game. Last play of the game, Ezekiel Elliott runs for it and runs for a touchdown where they gave up a big play. And I just feel like Tampa has done very good, but there are times where they have lapses, and they just can't let that happen in this game. Um, Number four, and of course the last one, most important to me, is special teams. Uh,
Hmm.
Set them up. I mean, you've got an awesome punter. Anger doesn't get the credit he deserves from the Buccaneer faithful, and I really think he does. I mean, he's helped us with the field position battle, and
Oh
he's
yeah.
a vital part of this team that doesn't get the credit he deserves. Anger, love you, man. I think I'm glad you're here.
I think I thought of a fourth. I got a fourth
Okay.
now.
All right. Let's have it.
Something we did not mention when we were talking about Kansas City is that the Bucs were 11 for 15, I believe, on third down. If not that, it was very close. Continue that. Be able to do that.
Yeah.
Like that was amazing. I don't know how that happened, but I mean, if you can be 11 for 15 or even 10 for 15, do it 2/3 of the time in every game, great, fantastic. So continue to do that against Seattle because if one of your keys we're not able to accomplish stopping them on third down, at least we can then produce on third down. So
Yeah. Absolutely. And one more. I just see you're talking about you forgot one. I've got one here. The running game.
mhm.
The
Yeah,
running game has to be huge. We have Jaquez Rogers, who is limited practice, so we're getting close to getting him back. We're close to getting Charles Sims back.
that's a
Doug,
surprise too.
yeah, Doug Martin. I mean, I love Jaquez Rogers. Not to take anything away from Charles Sims, but I watched Jaquez Rogers, and I felt like if this guy could have stayed healthy, he could have
Hmm.
really helped his team do so much more than what he did. But the fact that he got injured, you just have to next man up. That's pretty much how we have to look at that. So I'm excited. I think a lot. As I mentioned earlier, people are getting healthy at the right time. Now,
Yeah.
before we move on, we're getting close to the end of the podcast here. I want to take a minute to address something. I just thought about it. Uh, After the Chiefs game, I was listening to the Andy Reid press conference,
Hmm.
and something that struck me as funny. Andy Reid didn't know anybody's name on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I don't know if that was just he was saying that or how he was saying it. And you can go back and listen to his press conferences the day after the game. But he would address running backs as that guy or that other guy. He didn't know who was who. And, I'm not taking anything away because Tampa did go in to win that game. End of story. But the Kansas City Chiefs, I just feel like they didn't give Tampa the respect they deserve coming in as a professional football team that could have potentially beat them. And
Hmm.
that's you listen to the broadcasters too. The broadcasters did not give any props to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers either. Basically, it was you lost to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That's how they made it sound like it was the worst thing in the world to lose to Tampa. So there was that, and it's just this team has to earn the respect of the NFL. This is what
Hmm.
needs to happen in order to hear on ESPN, hear positive things about the Buccaneers. They have to win these games. This is why these games are very important because you don't want this to be an anomaly where you're saying, "Oh, they beat the Kansas City Chiefs and then they get blown out by the Seattle Seahawks." You don't want that. You want to be able to win these games and continue to really put Tampa on the map, so to speak.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I remember in 2010 when we had the 10-win season, a lot of, if not all of our wins came against teams under 500. And so that's what people kept saying. But you haven't beaten a real team yet, though. Like, who
But
have
they
you
won
beaten?
though.
Exactly. Oh, dude, I was on that. I was like, yeah, but nobody else in the league has won against all subpar 500 teams. Only we've done that. But it's we're talking about an argument back in 2010. Don't need to revisit it. But that's what people were saying. They were just like, you haven't beaten anyone yet. Now we have beaten someone in the Chiefs, but it's gonna be in case unless if the Bucs are able to continue to win, it's gonna be yeah, but you only beat the Chiefs. Who else have you beaten? The Falcons? Well, yeah, that's a divisional game. You'll have that happen. Even the Browns could win a divisional game. So it's not going to be something that we are going.
Not this year.
Well, yeah, maybe not this year. I still think they might be able to get one. I am holding out that they might be able to get one. I don't like seeing teams lose every game, but yeah. So I don't know if we'll be able to get that respect. And we know you don't have to beat Seattle in order to get the respect, but then we will have to beat somebody else down the line. We would have to sweep the Saints and the Panthers. Something like that would have to happen in order for that respect to be achieved. Or you could just go out and beat teams that you shouldn't beat, or at least that it's perceived that you shouldn't beat.
Right.
So that will be
Right.
a huge thing. I don't know if we'll gain all the respect we need to this year, but like I said, I think next year is definitely going to be a good year for us if we continue to show growth, if we continue to be the team that we have in the past few weeks. So that might be where the respect comes. We might have to wait until 2017, but we can build a solid foundation for it this year, I think.
Yeah, I think we've been doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And I've listened. I was reading on Facebook. There's a group of what they call realistic Bucks fans. These are fans that no matter whether they win or lose, they are pretty pretty negative. I'll put it that way towards the
Mm-hmm.
Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And a lot of people on that group were saying that Jason Light hasn't done a good job drafting. And I personally, I'm going to disagree with that because of who we've got. Players like a Kevin Pamfield, players like a
Mm-hmm.
Caleb Beninock, who was able to come in and assist this team. A lower end draft pick, but he's still able to come in and help this team, and he's slowly but surely progressing, and he's getting better. Roberto Aguayo,
Yeah.
coming on perfect the last couple of weeks, where you've seen other kickers, as you mentioned, are have struggled with extra points and field goals. So there's that. I mean, Jameis Winston, uh, Charles Sims. When Charles Sims is healthy, Charles Sims is always a threat to take it all the way. So
Quan
Quan
Alexander.
Alexander, exactly. So I think Vernon Hargraves has done a great job as a rookie, with the exception against Amari Cooper. But
Mm-hmm.
that's a whole other. That's for another podcast.
I didn't understand why we kept putting him on Amari. He was getting beat every time. But yeah, you're right. Whole nother podcast.
Yeah, a whole nother podcast. But you see where I'm going with this. Yeah, there have been misses like the uh, Austin Safari Jenkins, but that guy was a knucklehead.
Yeah,
And
you can't put that one against Light.
and the good thing about the whole Austin Safari and Jenkins thing is if he hadn't gotten hurt, we wouldn't have gotten Cameron Brate.
Mm-hmm.
Cameron Brate was on the practice squad for the Saints, and we wouldn't have picked him up. So good comes out of bad sometimes, and so I just feel like what Jason Light has been able to do, and how he's handled this team since Lovey's been gone. I think he's done a great job. I look at Robert Ayers. Robert Ayers is doing a great job. Noah Spence, another guy, doing a great job. Bringing in Brent Grimes was big to
Mm.
solidify that cornerback position because I don't know if you remember last year, it was the cornerback carousel.
Oh, it
It
absolutely
was
was.
really disgusting to see a different cornerback week after week after week after week. You could never
Hmm.
develop any consistency. So where Tampa is right now, I'm real happy with where they are right now. And it's one of those things I, kind of had to scale back my expectations, and I had them at a 7-win team. So I think they're, right now on pace for that. And you never know; they may pull out some wins that we haven't expected. Any given Sunday, you just got to still go out and play the game. So uh, I think Tampa's got a chance. They always have a chance to be in it.
I mean, I was right there with you with the 7-win prediction. I thought that was a good number, especially with the schedule we had. 7 wins seems solid. And I would be extremely happy with that too. But if we got to even just one more, if we ended the season at 500, I don't remember the last time we ended the season at 500 or above. I think it's 2010. I
22.
think that was the last. I think that was the last one. So I mean, it's a long process, a 6-year process. But we got back to 500, and I would be
Yeah,
ecstatic for that.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah, no, it was just. I mean, that's kind of like if you think about it, that's kind of sad to say out loud that you'd be super happy for a 500 win
But
season.
it's
Yeah,
progression. It's
it's
positive
definitely.
progression. That's what we're
Hmm.
looking at. And considering that Dirk Cutter is a first year coach, uh, first year as a head coach, and then Mike Smith is a first year defensive coordinator. I think they've done a good job adjusting to this point with the talent that they have. So, again, I feel like Tampa can actually, continually improve, and that's the kind of thing I expect is more improvement out of this team. I think they're headed in the right direction. Uh, you look at some of the players that they have in place. They've got a very young team, and once they develop that winning edge, I think they can win for a while. I think they have the pieces in place to win for a while. Where once you have your foundation built, you can bring players in, and they can contribute right away, and I think you can continue to win once you get that settled.
I agree. I have one last question for you, and this might be a long question.
All
Do
right,
you
let's have it.
think do you think the Bucks should go after Eric Berry in free agency? Because I've seen that a lot. I've seen a lot of fans be like, "We need to pursue Eric Berry."
I'm gonna say let's. I'm gonna say look at the draft first,
Yeah, I think so too.
and I'm gonna say this because I look at Teron Matthew, who's
Hmm.
over here in Arizona, and Jason Light was part of that vetting process. Jason Light is a personnel guy, and a lot of
Hmm.
people will not admit that. A lot of people may not like him or like his drafting style. I do, and I feel like if there's a player available in the draft, depending on where Tampa is, where we can possibly get that player, I think that we will. Um, I just have seen all the misses that Tampa has had in free agency, and
Hmm.
spending a lot of money in free agency does not always improve your team. So
Yeah,
it's something to consider. Eric Berry is how old?
I don't know, man. I think he's in his mid
Uh,
20s, late 20s right now. I'll look it
let
up.
me see. I'm looking right now.
27.
Yeah, so he's right there. I mean, what do you give him, like a 3 or 4 year contract or something like that? I mean, I
Yeah, I
guess.
think he might try to go for a longer one, but yeah, that's what the Bucks would want to do. They would want to give him a 3 or 4 year one.
Yeah, and yeah, that would definitely help. That would definitely help Tampa. But again, you've got a Vernon Hargraves who you've invested a first round draft pick in. You've got a Brent Grimes who I'm thinking he's going to play personally.
I
Just
hope he does.
the fact that he's sitting out is not a big deal. He's a veteran. He knows how practice works. So if they don't practice him, that's not a big deal to me. It's going to come down to does he feel comfortable playing with that quad injury. So that's kind of what it comes down to. But I would love to see him on the field if he's healthy. If he's not healthy, you got to sit him so he's not a detriment to the team, and that's how
Yeah.
I look at that whole scenario right there.
And our secondary played fine without him in there. I know Kansas City doesn't necessarily have a high-powered offense, but our secondary was able to keep it in there, able to keep the game in check. So
It's kind of interesting. We were talking about Chris Conti. Chris Conti seems, I've seen him get beat on a few plays, but at the same time, I think he's starting to understand the defense a little bit more. I'm gonna hold judgment on that here for the next couple of games and see how it goes.
yeah.
But I'm happy with what he's done. He's actually come in and contributed to the Bucs winning a game. I mean, running an interception out to the 50 was huge, and
That was.
you heard everybody in sports radio in Kansas City talking about that was a game breaker right there, and it really was. I know that Kansas City came down and scored, but it took them 3 minutes to score, so they knocked all that time off the clock, and then by the time they scored and we got the ball back, it was a whole nother story. So hats off to Chris Conti, and I thought he's done really great.
Oh, you should have seen me when he got that interception. I was so angry he left the end zone. I was like, take a knee, Chris Conti. And I'm like, oh, okay, never mind. You had a better view than I did. You knew what you were doing. My bad. I should give you more faith. Totally my bad. You got this, Chris. You know what you're doing 2 weeks in a row. I'm not going to say anything anymore.
Exactly.
You do you, man. Go get another
That's right.
tattoo while you're at it. You got this.
So I think if he gets another pick, you never know. I mean, he's got a pick six, and then he brings another one out to the 50. I mean,
Yeah.
you can't argue with the confidence that gives a player. So that's another thing to really be excited about. Hopefully he can make another play and put the Bucs in a position to win.
I mean, yeah, it would be a nice change of pace from the first year and a half we've had him 2 years. So I'm completely down with that.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we get ready to wrap up the show, I always talk about the game ball, and this is my favorite part of the show. We try to keep it with a positive vibe here about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and especially when they win, you gotta get that game ball out. So who would you give that Tampa Bay Buccaneers game ball out to for the most outstanding play in that game against the Kansas City Chiefs?
Well, we've already talked about Roberto Aguayo, and he's definitely up there. But if he probably would get it. I think he does get it for me. But my second choice would have to be Winston. Winston had one of his better games he's had all season. I think so, at least. I mean, he didn't have the touchdowns. He didn't have the 6 points, but he was able to continuously move the ball down the field. So I think my second choice would be Winston. Roberto Aguayo gets number one because he had a second straight perfect week, and he basically put up most of the points. But Winston led him there, and so I think Winston did a great job this week. And also, I don't think he had a turnover. Or maybe he had an interception. No, I don't think he had a turnover.
Yeah.
So.
Well, for me, it is going to be Roberto Aguayo. I mean, this guy suffers so much slander from every other team. I mean, our division rivals, Panther fans, Falcon fans, Saints fans, people in our division, people in the NFL have been like, how could you waste a second round pick on this guy? How could you do that? And for me, I'm just like, you know what? That's
Gene, still there?
Sorry.
Oh, you're back. There you are.
Yeah, all right. Okay. Yeah. Go ahead and I'm sorry I missed out. Technical difficulties.
No, you're just talking about your game ball. That's all that's happened. I didn't hear past. You're gonna give it to
Yeah.
Roberto
Yeah.
Aguayo,
Okay.
so.
Yeah. So yeah, that's my guy. That's Roberto Aguayo. I thought he's done an awesome job. I feel like he's coming into his own. He's starting to get that confidence. I mean, you see the kicks that he's making. You see the confident. I mean, it's not like it's wide right and it's barely creeping in. I mean, this guy he's making the kicks and they look rock solid. Yeah. So I think he's finally getting his groove, and that's somebody I feel like deserves it based on all the slander he's had to deal with from everybody, every GM in the NFL that criticized the whole moving up to from the third round to the second round to make a pick. You know, hopefully he can prove them all wrong.
Yeah, no, I'm hoping so too. I mean, I remember after the Oakland game, or right before it, people were talking about how Sebastian Janikowski had these issues, similar issues in his first year. And so that gave me some faith. Yeah, that gives me some faith. That gave me some faith at the time, and it looks like that faith might be paying off. I don't know. I mean, it's too early to tell. It's only been 2 games. I'm not going to say he's there yet. But, you know, it looks like it might be paying off. So I'm hoping. I'm just hoping.
That is awesome. All right. So we're going to roll it up here. But what I want to do is I want to get your parting thoughts and, you know, just whatever you got to say, just put it out there. You're the co-host.
All right. You know, I think I've exhausted most of my topics, but, you know, the Seattle game should be a lot closer than I think some people think it will be. Seattle has a pretty weak division right now, so their record is a little inflated in my mind, and ours might be too because we've had to play that division as well, but we haven't had the same luck they've had. We had that Rams game that the whole rain destroyed. I think the rain was a killer in that game, but that's a completely different topic. So, yeah, no, I mean, there hasn't been the same luck. I think, Seattle's division is pretty weak, and so I think the game will be a lot closer than people think. I'm hesitant to say the Bucs will flat out win, but it should be a close contest, and as long as we can keep Russell Wilson in check, we should be able to stay in the game. What you got, Gene?
It's going to be fans. Let's fill Ray J. Let's get out there and support this team. And I know it's been hard. Every time you go to Ray J, you come out brokenhearted. But, you know, this team is improving. And it's just each game, you got to take it game by game. And I think that Tampa is going to surprise a lot of people. And they're going to win games that a lot of people don't think they will because, you know, you've got a lot of teams that are overlooking Tampa and they're not taking them serious. So I feel that any given Sunday, you can go out there and win a game. But it's just fun rooting for this team. I've been hyped up from the beginning, from the end of the season last year up till now, going through the draft and going through preseason and camp and all these other things. And then here we are. The season's almost over. So I'm just hoping the Bucs can go out there and win this game, you know, and prove all the doubters wrong. A lot of people were upset with the move bringing Dirk Cutter in as the head coach, but he's continually growing with the team. And just the message that he came with in the beginning of the season, being competitive, you know, what he stuck to. So I'm excited.
Yeah, no, I mean, and, you know, fans, if you live in Tampa, if you don't want to go to win, go to party.
Exactly. There's some tailgates. There's some legendary tailgates in Tampa. I would put our tailgate parties up against anything that Arizona has.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, Arizona does. I'm not going to get started on Arizona fandom. Again, another podcast. We have 3 other podcasts we have to do within this podcast at this point. So
there you go. All right. Well, everybody, thank you so much. I appreciate everybody checking us out. And give us some likes and leave us some comments. And we will see you next week. Hopefully we'll have won. Who knows? All right. Everybody have a good night.